Black people need a modernized version of Booker T. Washington and Tuskegee Institute, written and edited by D.F.Rogers. Booker T. Washington was a prominent African-American educator, author, orator, and advisor to several U.S. presidents. He was born into slavery in Hales Ford, Virginia, and after the Civil War, he worked his way out of poverty through education. Washington became one of the most influential African-American leaders in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. His key contributions are Tuskegee Institute. Washington is best known for founding the Tuskegee Normal and Industrial Institute, now Tuskegee University, in Alabama in 1881. Under his leadership, Tuskegee became a leading institution for the education of African Americans, emphasizing practical skills and trades as a means for Black people to achieve economic self-reliance and respect. Philosophy of accommodation. Washington is often associated with a philosophy of accommodation, which he articulated in his famous 1895 Atlanta Compromise speech. He believed that African Americans should focus on economic self-improvement and vocational training rather than directly challenging segregation and disenfranchisement. This approach was controversial, as some African American leaders, like W.E.B. Du Bois, criticized Washington for being too accommodating to white supremacy and for not demanding full civil rights. Advisor to presidents, Washington became a key advisor to several U.S. presidents, including Theodore Roosevelt and William Howard Taft. He was the first African American to be invited to the White House, where he dined with President Roosevelt in 1901, an event that caused a national controversy. Author, Washington wrote several influential books, including his autobiography, Up from Slavery, 1901, which detailed his rise from slavery to becoming a leading educator and public figure. The book remains a significant work in American history and literature. Legacy. Despite criticism of his methods, Washington's impact on African American education and his efforts to improve the lives of Black Americans during a time of pervasive racial discrimination were profound. His work laid the groundwork for future civil rights movements, and his emphasis on self-reliance and education continues to resonate today. Tuskegee is no longer the type of school Booker T. Washington organized it to be, which is why this article is about modernizing his version and putting aside your feelings and opinions about what you think you know about Booker T. The importance of Booker T. Washington should be viewed through the lens of self-determination. And essential to the freedom of a race of people is to have self-determination. For a people to be self-determined, they need to have, but not limited to, the following: an identity. They cannot under any confusion about who they are in relation to each other and the politics of the world. A land base. Land is something a people are connected to and can always have to evaluate and evolve as a result of maintaining. A relationship to the resources of the land and the knowledge of how to cultivate those resources for usage by humans. An ability to defend their identity, land base, and resources through the education of its citizens, so it's a part of the thinking of the people. An ability to defend their land base and resources militarily. What was Tuskegee University when Booker T. Washington was alive? Though today Tuskegee University is not much different from any other college, when Booker was alive, these are the teachings he put emphasis on and organized into the educational process. Agriculture. Students were taught farming techniques, crop rotation, animal husbandry, and other agricultural skills. This was crucial as many African Americans in the South were sharecroppers or farmers. 2. Trades and industrial education. The Institute offered training in various trades, including carpentry, blacksmithing, shoemaking, tailoring, brickmaking, and other crafts. This focus on manual skills was intended to provide students with practical skills that they could use to find employment or start their own businesses. 3. Teacher training. Tuskegee also served as a normal school, which means it trained teachers. Washington believed that education was key to the uplift of African Americans, so training teachers was a critical component of the curriculum. 4. Home economics. Instruction in domestic skills such as cooking, sewing, and home management was also provided, particularly for female students. This was in line with the era's gender norms and Washington's emphasis on practical skills. 5. Basic academic subjects. In addition to vocational training, students received instruction in basic academic subjects such as reading, writing, mathematics, and science. However, these subjects were often taught in the context of their practical application. 6. Moral and character education. Washington emphasized the importance of moral character, hard work, and self-discipline. The curriculum included lessons on ethics, responsibility, and the importance of contributing to the community. 7. Entrepreneurship and self-reliance. Washington encouraged the idea of economic self-reliance and entrepreneurship. He wanted students to learn how to start and manage their own businesses, which was essential for economic independence in a segregated society. 8. Engineering. While the primary focus was on agriculture, carpentry, and other trades, Tuskegee did have programs in the sciences and engineering. In the early 20th century, the school was involved in various technological and agricultural innovations. Although there isn't a specific record of Tuskegee teaching students how to generate electricity in the early years, the institution's broader educational programs likely included elements of electrical engineering and related technical skills as the field developed. Over time, Tuskegee expanded its curriculum to include more advanced engineering and scientific disciplines, including electrical engineering. Marcus Garvey came to America initially to meet Booker T. Washington in person after they traded letters. Garvey had plans of using the Tuskegee Institute curriculum and blueprint to establish schools similar to Tuskegee in Jamaica and Africa. Marcus Mosiah Garvey was a Jamaican-born political leader, publisher, journalist, entrepreneur, and orator who became a powerful figure in the early 20th century Black nationalism and Pan-Africanism movements. He is best known for founding the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League, which sought to unify and uplift people of African descent worldwide. His key contributions to those of African ancestry were as significant, if not more significant, than Booker T. Washington's. They are but not limited to the following. Garvey founded the UNEA in 1914 in Jamaica, and it became a major global movement advocating for the rights and empowerment of Black people. The UNIA's motto was, "One God, one aim, one destiny," and it promoted racial pride, economic self-sufficiency, and the establishment of a strong, independent Black nation. Garvey was a leading proponent of Pan-Africanism, a movement that called for the unity of all people of African descent across the globe. He believed that people of African descent should return to Africa, their ancestral homeland, and create a powerful, independent nation. This idea became known as the Back to Africa movement. Garvey founded the Black Star Line, a shipping company that was intended to facilitate trade and transport between Africa, the Americas, and the Caribbean, and to eventually help transport African Americans to Africa. Although the company faced financial difficulties and was ultimately unsuccessful, it symbolized Garvey's vision of economic independence for Black people. Garvey established the Negro World, a widely circulated newspaper that promoted the ideas of the UNIA and spread Garvey's message of Black empowerment and unity. The newspaper played a crucial role in building the UNIA's international following. So since a man like Marcus Garvey seen the significance in and put in effort to follow Booker T. Washington's Tuskegee Institute teaching model, it's highly intelligent of the people he created the model for to do the same. Booker T's teaching model deserves more credibility in terms of evolving the status of people of African descent across the globe. Marcus Garvey stated, "Liberate the minds of men, and ultimately you will liberate the bodies of men." It is of the greatest importance that Black people in America establish modernized versions of Booker T. Washington's Tuskegee University in order to assure our survival in a country that refuses to grant us reparations in our current state of existence. To give a detailed understanding of why these teachings being taught and organized in a modernized fashion that doesn't require large sums of money and student loans to receive, I will go over each of the areas Booker T. Washington organized Tuskegee with, and why his form of education is of great necessity to Black people in America today. Agriculture modernized. At one time, you couldn't eat what you didn't have the knowledge to grow. In some places on the planet, this is still the reality. Who's to say in a world full of wars, recessions, amongst aggressive capitalist groups that lack humanity, corrupt politics, and chemicals being marketed to us and our children as food that blacks won't end up in an need? If you can't grow it, you can't eat it. Reality again. A modernized agriculture education with all forms of modernized tools and technology used in the farming of capitalism is key to the survival and security of a people who are rarely treated or educated with a pure sense of justice and fairness. If grocery stores close their doors or shelves don't get restocked, much of America will go hungry. As the saying goes, when white people go into a recession, black people experience a depression. So if white people go hungry, blacks will starve to death due to the lack of control of resources and a lack of political agendas and allies. The technological advances of the world require that we educate our youth and many of our, as adults, populations in the same areas as Booker Washington did, but with the differences to suit the day and time we exist in. A great man by the name of Elijah Muhammad, who founded the Nation of Islam, preached that time should dictate agenda. May our agenda in the area of agriculture reflect the time we live in. Trades and industrial modernized. A relationship to the means of production is a large part of what gives and sustains a people's freedom. There is no such thing as a non-economic emancipation for a people. That is what blacks received when we were freed from serving America on the plantations in the late 1800s. Booker T. Washington found a way for us to overcome this non-economic emancipation so we could be more than former slaves and sharecroppers, but a self-reliant people. Regular trading schools that teach electrical, plumbing, brickmaking, welding, residential and commercial property construction and management, and more. Each of these, with corporate structuring and expansion in the business's operations, would give blacks a degree of power to compete and build employment opportunities for people with trades and traditional degrees in business, engineering, etc. Manufacturing and the business of manufacturing are areas of education blacks need to be taught in an institutional setting. Many of us as blacks have worked in a manufacturing plant making some type of product and know much of the process at these plants we are involved in. An education on manufacturing the products we build for the companies we work for, such as airplanes, vehicles, televisions, furniture, clothing, shoes, etc., will give us power over brands we can develop group economics and generational wealth with. Even looking into 3D printing of properties and products can be of value due to the costs in comparison to traditional methods of manufacturing. Technology is of the greatest importance in terms of education. Black children need to be taught coding along with the business opportunities and how to position their coding skills to produce companies like Uber, Facebook, or Meta, Xbox and PlayStation, etc. Computer chips like the logic chips used in smartphones and artificial intelligence models that are made mainly in Taiwan and gives Taiwan power on the international stage can be manufactured in black communities in the empty buildings and schools that are all through cities like Detroit, Michigan, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Memphis, Tennessee, and Jackson, Mississippi. It's borderline criminal for the world to be expanding at a rapid pace, technological, and black children are not being educated on the basics and dynamics of. This will turn them into a permanent underclass that will never be able to compete if this doesn't change. Schools that teach technology and make an effort to keep up with its advances and organize technological creations into companies for the sale and licensing of the inventions that come out of it can change the face of Black America on several different wealth and educational levels. Teaching training. Booker T. Washington understood the value of quality and relatable educators, so he put a teacher training program in Tuskegee's early curriculums. Many young black boys are being taught by white women who may be able to sympathize but have a very hard time being relatable or getting black boys to open up to. There are many degrees blacks have earned that can be used to repair black ignorance and counter the negative influences that our youth are taking seriously enough to base their daily practices on. We have to develop institutions that employ our college-educated so they can make a living while empowering the race. Everyone is not made to be an activist or a revolutionary. But people will be happy to offer their educational services and find a sense of pride in doing so for their race. Getting those of us educated in the areas of what the school's curriculum is organized towards producing is of great importance to this, to keep our ideas close to home and protected from being tainted by those who don't want us to have wealth, power, and self-determination. Entrepreneurship and self-reliance. Entrepreneurship that grows into group economics, that is foundation on the need for self-reliance, needs to be institutionalized so that we can learn the business of producing together and being a business. Entrepreneur, to a great degree, determine the thinking of a community based on what types of business they establish. Moral and character training. The late great Dr. Amos Wilson, in his book Black on Black Violence, Black Annihilation in Service of White Domination, explains how blacks in America are destroyed by the values we take on from the social structure. If the value system presented to black youth through entertainment is telling them it's worth killing over money, and that jewelry, expensive clothes, and high-end shoes are more important than buying land, then their actions will reflect it, unless another form of moral and character training is institutionalized and given to them like general education is. They need a mental filter fecundated on the reality and power of being black, militarized in their minds to combat images and words they are consuming from the toxicity of their culture, a culture they don't control but consume. Teaching them their history as a people before, during, and after slavery, and why unity and treating each other justly is of importance in combating divide-and-conquer techniques put in motion to keep blacks out of power and purpose. Family and responsibility to community come with morality and character. Blacks are losing the ability to build healthy family structures. The family is a technology, the first technology we established in Africa, and it's a product of the institution of marriage. In conclusion, a modernized version of the Booker T. Washington version, Tuskegee Institute can heal the emotional, mental, educational, and financial pains blacks experience in America. If a teaching is not institutionalized, it won't stick long enough to produce results on the masses. Books, podcasts, and speeches will only go so far. Booker T. Washington understood this and chose to build institutions before thinking about entering politics. Most politicians are being lobbied and put laws and policies in motion to favor those lobbyists. A lobbyist has a business interest that they are protecting. Blacks have no group business interests and no control over any natural resources. So we have nothing to protect but a fallback into chattel slavery, thus settling for a modern version of slavery that keeps us at the bottom and serving those above us, just like we did during slavery. This is reflected in us controlling not much more wealth than we did when we were freed from slavery. Education is the only way out of the ignorance. Institutions are the best way to have a lasting impact on a people, and self-reliance is the only way to prove you deserve to be free.